Oneness family, wholeness and balance. Jesse Tree here, sending you tons of love. I'm excited today. I'm going to be joined by my new friend Carrie, who is an amazing researcher, clinician who's been studying the body electric, the electric universe, cymatics, something called the exclusion zone water, and I'm very excited to have her join us. Here she comes. Hold on. I think that did it. Hey,
Hi,
greetings.
Jesse.
Greetings.
Greetings to you.
So nice to meet you, Carrie.
Likewise, likewise. Thank you so much for making this connection and doing this live. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I've been, as you know, watching your posts for a while, and you're doing an amazing job breaking this down in such a distinct and powerful way. So
Thank you. I try to walk that line right between honoring while at the same time making it understandable for all of us.
yes, well, you do a great job. You've got the
Thank
science
you.
behind a lot of the stuff many of us are chasing. So to kind of, frame, uh, the background for my life, I've been following what's called the breatharian path, and this started with me maybe 12 years ago with sun gazing and grounding. And I noticed that you do a lot of posts about the sun and how it can charge the body like a battery and grounding. And so I, just love to hear, a little bit of your story as well as your, sharing some of this awesome information.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, um, doing hearing about breatharians actually is what made me dive even more into this science, because it was like, wait a second. I mean, have we been told a half truth this whole time, or potentially an outright lie about energy in the body? And so it really helped get me down this really awesome rabbit hole. And you're the first breatharian I'm officially meeting. So it's such a pleasure to meet you. The way that I think we need to view the human body is that we derive energy from different things. And I like to actually start with this idea of, what did plants use, right? Because plants have been around for even longer than we have, right? And so what did plants use? Well, plants use this process called photosynthesis, where they pull in sunlight, right? These beautiful photons of light, and they split water. And it starts this process of them ultimately fixing it into carbohydrates. And so if it worked for plants and, cyanobacteria and things like that for so many years, why were we told that we just kind of got a new system right in place? It just doesn't make any sense. And so I thought to myself, well, there has to be a way that we derive energy beyond what I was taught in a typical biology class, which is we eat food, it becomes electrons, those electrons go to the mitochondria, and the mitochondria transform them into this magical energy currency called ATP, right? And then that ATP supposedly fuels everything the cell needs to do. And it turns out that's not true, right? That's not actually all that happens. And so that's where I dove into what you alluded to earlier, this idea of exclusion zone water, the water inside of our bodies. I think it's the missing factor in understanding how we as humans can derive energy from nature, from grounding, from sunlight, from breathing in certain ways, if you will, in order to be able to utilize the energy from nature in a way that absolutely provides a vast source of potential energy for all of our cells. So for people who are unfamiliar with exclusion zone water, it's a different structure of water inside of our cells. our body doesn't have, our cells, unlike what we were maybe taught, our cells don't slosh liquid around, right? Yes, there's liquid, water, like fluid in our blood. Yes, there's fluid in our lymphatic system. But in and around all biological surfaces, the water actually forms more of a gel-like structure. And it's ordered in a hexagonal lattice. Like, so these water molecules rearrange the H's and the O's to actually make a structured lattice that behaves in a different way. So if we were to measure the charge, if you will, of water in a glass, like liquid water, we would be told it's neutral, right? There's a balancing out of the electrons and the protons. But it turns out that the structured water that forms, this exclusion zone water that forms inside of our bodies, is negatively charged. And in order to be negatively charged, it means it had to have kicked out a positive charge, a proton. And one of the most basic atoms, the hydrogen atom, can be synonymous with just a proton, right? And so what happens is we build this beautiful negatively charged water lattice, and then we line up a positively charged zone of protons right next to it. And all the lab research is showing that we can put electrodes in each of those zones, the negative zone and the positive zone, and derive enough energy to light a light bulb. And if we recognize that this water then forms everywhere in the body, that's a massive source of potential energy that goes way beyond what we were taught in grade school textbooks about mitochondria and ATP. And we can use nature then with this framework to understand how to extract even more energy from our environment.
That is awesome. It's so awesome because, you know, I've been living this. There's a lot of people who are exploring this path, and, you know, the mind starts to question. And there's that whole adage of what you can believe, conceive and believe you can achieve. So this is a fact, you know, it's become a fact for me. I'm right now doing 23-hour dry fasts with 1 hour of consuming liquids. And I've been doing that for 7 days, even though, and probably because I'm out in the garden. I'm a permaculturalist and a gardener. And so, I'm barefoot all the time. And so I, you know, am constantly gaining the electrons and stuff. And when I'm fasting and I go outside, I really feel it as nourishment.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And I like that, you know, believe it and achieve it. You know, it's like the belief part sometimes for some of us, you know, I just talked about this in a podcast today earlier. This world has embraced this concept of science, right? Like we need this crazy scientific language and rigor to understand what's been intuitively known for millennia. And I feel like this kind of bridges the gap, right? It allows us to explain something that really we don't need to explain because you feel it in your bodies, right? You believe it can happen. But this helps some people who are maybe skeptical or even maybe judgmental of living that way understand that there is a possibility, and it's based in this concept of quantum health and quantum biology. So when you're barefoot, Jesse, outside underneath the full spectrum sunlight, the sunlight, specifically the infrared wavelength of light, actually creates a bigger battery in the body, a bigger zone of negative charge and a bigger zone of positive charge. So that infrared wavelength can penetrate deeply into us. And when it does that, a lot of the research in Dr. Pollack's lab has shown that it can expand that exclusion zone fourfold. So essentially you're charging up your battery every time you're outside in infrared light. And that infrared light is available to us basically from dawn until dusk. So anytime you're outside, you're getting that exclusion zone water battery charge. And then you have the added effect of being barefoot. And we know that the surface of the earth is like this infinite source of electrons, right? It has this negative charge, these electrons that are flowing from it. And these electrons can flow into our body because our connective tissue and our meridian system is a semiconductor for them. So we can literally conduct the electrons into our bodies, and those electrons then basically go through this exclusion zone, and we have an added source of electrons beyond food, right, to ferry to our mitochondria to make ATP. Oh, and at step 4, the mitochondria also make more water, right? So it's like this beautiful beautiful reinforcing cycle. And then when you're in the more powerful wavelengths of sunlight, the ultraviolet range, that when that comes in contact with our skin and strikes that exclusion zone water, there's something called a quantum electrodynamic effect. It literally creates a plasma of free electrons in that exclusion zone water that again can go anywhere the body needs where there might be a potential electron deficiency, and it can go to restore the exclusion zone water in those areas and also feed the mitochondria. So I mean, it's beautiful, right? When you put it out there and you put it all together in those pieces, it's really, really beautiful. And I would say even those people, even those of us who still are consuming food really only makes up about a third of our potential energy, right? Like we can derive at least 60% or more from sunlight and from nature. And so we've just really placed an overemphasis on that and an underemphasis on how we can utilize natural sources of energy.
That is so beautiful the way, you know, you put it forward, and it is, you know, akin to my experience, because this has been like a long, you know, progression. And part of it was in learning herbalism and learning to forage plants and realizing that all the plants around us are food medicine, can't be used as such. And then getting into this other higher level of understanding through breatharianism, just this, it's something I like to share in our classes. We say, you know, we believe in pronoia instead of paranoia, that the universe is conspiring in our favor, that everything is here to support us. And when you know, hear the science broken down like that, you can see how clear this is, that this is actual potential. And it's my firm belief that we're actually all going there. That hence the interest in grounding, you know, sun gazing, just getting under the sun, fasting. These are all part and parcel of what it used to be human. You know, I was a dawning many years ago of like everything people in the past used to do was like an amazing health path, you know, and it's no wonder why so many people are so unhealthy when they're stuck inside with air that's recirculated under fluorescent light with shoes on. They're touching the street, you know, they don't ever touch the Mother Earth with their own body, you know. And so it's really amazing. And as I understand it too, maybe you can help break down some of the science around this. The skin and the skeleton is like carbon silica crystal that's conductive, semiconductive, superconductive, and resonator. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so like this gets into this concept of fractal anatomy and liquid crystals. We have a lot of crystalline structures in the body, and every biological surface is covered in this water, right? So everything is basically, a lot of things are a liquid crystal, from the bone to the connective tissue fascia itself to this liquid crystalline water structure, even the water, right? So this is the different fractals of being a crystalline nature. And the bone and the connective tissue are piezoelectric because they can generate their own electron current in response to like pressure and shearing and movement and force. And so this whole body, this whole network of the connective tissue, the bone and the water is able to conduct electrons. And because it's all one path, right, we have to recognize that in Western medicine, we've done a really good job at reducing things to various parts, right, that mechanistic approach. Mm-hmm. But when you view this whole body of the connective tissue, which bone is a connective tissue, blood is a connective tissue, the fascia is a connective tissue, and it literally goes everywhere and permeates into the deepest parts of every cell, and it's all covered in this water. So we are liquid crystalline everywhere. We're a liquid crystal highway, and this liquid crystal highway has so many ways to ferry electrons. So from our generation of our own electrons through the piezoelectric effect of movement and forces to semiconducting those electrons from the earth, right, into this network, from allowing the sun to create the plasma of electrons that scatters throughout this network as well. it's what we are, right? At the deepest level, that's what we are. And that's true human physiology right there. And then you take that a step further to recognize that in physics, it's very well established that liquid crystals can interact with electromagnetic fields. So that means like I am an antenna basically all throughout my body for so many different frequencies. And unfortunately, like you mentioned earlier, the majority of us are disconnected from those frequencies of nature that provide healing code and information. And we're more connected to the non-native frequencies coming from things like devices and screens and fluorescent light, and even frequencies from our emotions, right? We're more depressed, we're more anxious, we're more fearful as a society. And that's impacting what that water network, my liquid crystalline structures are perceiving, and then essentially directing my physiology to do.
You are absolutely brilliant, sister. I love what you're chasing there.
Thank you.
It's so juicy. I love it. It's
all connected, and I just needed the quantum language to understand what's been known for so long.
It's been, the path. My teacher is this man, Elitam Alamin. He's the guy who kind of initiated me into this lifestyle. And, everything you said are things that he has, taught us to use as techniques to grow into the light, he would say, grounding, the sun thing, also exercise, sexual temperance, because of this whole thing of like the nexus and ganglion of nerves and everything that run up the spinal column. And that, like what you were saying is kind of like, we're like an antenna, that the pineal gland has this microcrystalline structure, that's like,
it is liquid crystalline too, yeah.
As
Yep.
of your DNA, like a light wave,
Yep.
it even looks like a light wave, and
Yes.
just fascinating, fun stuff. And it's, these are things that we can all bring into our life, and that's where, my dad was a nuclear engineer, I grew up in Los Alamos, New Mexico, which if you don't know where that is, it's where the A-bomb was devised. So it was a very scientific community. And I really kind of stepped out of that, to chase more sort of like a spiritual pursuit, and even that word spirit, as I understand it, it's connected with spiral and fire. And, this thing of the fire of like electrons and electricity moving through our body, and us opening up as transmitter receivers. I saw your post today about the heart, which is to me, I'm a Buddhist, and from that tradition, there's this whole concentration on the heart, that your heart is actually your greater mind, and this electromagnetic field, that organizes all your other organs, but extends well beyond your body. So cool.
It's so cool. And like, to go back to this concept of the spiraling, right? Like you'll see spirals everywhere. This is another fractal aspect of nature and of energy flow. And, I think it's only been within the past decade or two, maybe that modern science has understood this idea of a biofield, right? But that's another flow, right? This spiral. So we know that a photon spirals as it travels. We know that water spirals in vortexes as it goes through streams and around rocks. We know that the biofield spirals, right? We know that the heart field, it's like this torsion and this spiraling. And so we do have to recognize that this anything that repeats itself in nature over and over, it's important, right? And so when I found out that all of these spirals existed from the cosmos of, what a universe or what a solar system looks like, right? All the way down to the magnetic field of my heart creating this torsion of spiraling around me, it made me realize how important that aspect was. It's been the latest thing that I've been studying, because I kind of needed to anchor my knowledge in like the physical of the water, right? And then I took it a step further. Well, what about electrons and photons? And now this next step is love and being heart-centric, unconditional love. It plays such an important role because of that field that we create that connects us basically to source energy, right? I call it God. People can call it whatever they want, right? Bliss, source energy, creator, call it whatever you want, but that's our connection. And as we expand that out into the world, that provides this ultimate connection that then we spread to other people when we're in a close enough proximity, and that it resonates with them, that we circle in this toroidal fashion back through us, and it communicates with anything else that contains like this helical structure, like you said, the DNA, the helical connections between the mitochondria, the helical portion of the ventricles of the heart, right? There's all of this spiraling that then resonates with that. And so it really is all connected. And I just feel like, it's so simple, but we need to place a bigger emphasis on the importance of those 5 minutes you have sitting peacefully in nature, focusing on love. Like a lot of my scientific friends would be like, you're absolutely insane if you think that has any effect. And nowadays, when I've got 5 minutes free, that's what I'm doing. I'm sitting under this tree out here under the light, focusing on love. And I feel it. I notice a difference. And so I'm really hoping we can start to use this quantum language to shift the mindset and the importance, because all of these things are so interconnected in such a profound way.
And if we think about our experience, love is the most profound experience. How many love songs have been written, and poems? It's good to know the science, but that's what I like about the science that you're sharing, is that it becomes practical and experientially. And have you ever heard of Nassim Haramein?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the whole thing of the vector equilibrium and the singularity at the center of your heart, as well as all your cells. And also what you're talking about was making me think of esoteric science and astrology, in astrology, the sun is the heart of the solar system, and it has a resonant, field with your heart field, and literally the electromagnetics are all ensconced inside of each other, these toroidal fields from your cells to your heart to the earth to the sun, solar system. And that if we can tap into that, then we actually have, according to the ancients, this is like the greatest place of knowing is the heart. And as I understand it scientifically too, it's like 60% neural tissue. It's actually like a brain,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's way, and now we're finding that the heart is what we respond to first in all circumstances in our environment, right? We feel changes in either emotion or heart rate variability, or the amount of blood flow we're going to pull into our heart. And those are the things that actually then signal to the rest of our body a state of calm and physiological harmony and optimum performance, or it signals a state of fear, right? And so then we start to see changes in DNA expression. Then we start to see changes in mitochondrial function. But it's the heart that is the receiver, right? It's the receiver and the transmitter that we have to tune into the most. From that very reason that it has such a dense neuronal network, to the fact that it it generates the largest magnetic field away from our body. All the way to the fact that, like you said, the fractal universe that we see when it comes to all of these different layers, from the sun all the way down to the microscopic level, like in the middle of a proton, actually. So it's like you see it on so many different ways. And it's really, learning quantum health and these concepts, it brings me peace. A lot of us, and a lot of my clients who come to me, they get kind of stuck in this guru mentality of like, I need to find someone to heal me, right? Someone knows what's wrong with me and they're going to fix me. And the more I learn about this, the more I recognize that I am the healer, right? Not for them. I'm my own healer. You are your own healer. And you just have to start to connect a couple of these concepts. And it's so empowering to recognize that you have it inside of you, right? It's with you all the time. And you just have to figure out how to just tap into it. And it doesn't take, it's not hard. It just takes a little bit of, like you said, if you believe it, you can achieve it.
It's that intention and focus, and
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first organ that forms, of course, is the heart. So in Buddhist philosophy, there's this there's this whole idea of like a Buddha inside your heart, you know,
Oh,
that, and what you said about healing too, from the breatharian perspective, is that we are all perfect. And we have this misnomer that perfect means without flaws. Perfect means you're endowed with everything you need, you know, and you're complete. And so that's this understanding, you know, and experience that I've been moving into. And I do feel it, you know, that I would suggest people get out there and spend 5 hours meditating under the tree, you know, because the neurons that fire together wire together. And when you can entrain into your own heart field, then you're protected in the aura of your electromagnetic field, and you can
yeah.
start to emanate and share love, you know, more readily. And we could, you know, build this culture. I feel like this is like the dawning of, you know, this building of this culture of understanding that we are all intimately connected with one another, with all of nature, that, you know, that this is a heaven realm, and that it's just a matter of our focus and intention, you know, because we're able to create whatever we want with our minds. And so, you know, there's a lot of pushing towards the anxiety inducing aspects of what's going on in the world. But at the same time, there's this birthing of this understanding that's going on, you know. And so as we move forward, I think this is going to be, you know, what helps us understand what we need to do, you know, to move forward progressively. And that main thing is just to try to love ourselves and one another, you know.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. Absolutely, it is. It does feel like a dawning, right? It feels like enough people have recognized that what they've been doing isn't helping. It isn't fulfilling. There's like a void, right? There's a lot of people describe it as like this emptiness, and so I do feel like this blend of quantum science and ancient healing is really something that a lot of people can say, yeah, it makes sense, right? It just makes sense, and start to apply it. Like you said, it's free, and intention is powerful, right? You know, and intention is such a powerful thing. I don't know if people are aware, but like there's a lot of research that shows that intention can structure even water in a glass that we drink to either, you know, imbibe us and change our heart rate variability, imbibe us with more exclusion zone water. I mean, intention can shift a lot of things in so many ways. And so I always have my clients start off with a mindset exercise, right? Like I really want them to recognize that what they think and what they put out there is, and sometimes it's they're putting it out there. Sometimes it's just this repetitive, you know, there's a lot of people that have this repetitive negative self-talk. And it really is step one in terms of coming to changing your health or improving your health and reconnecting to nature, is recognizing what thoughts dominate your life and the fact that you can shift those consciously in order to really set a lot of balls rolling in your direction. I had a phone call. A woman reached out to me about, it's probably 2 weeks ago now. She went through a Kundalini healing, you know, Kundalini experience, and she was telling me about her own, a woman that she knew of who was looking for healing, and recognized that it was love that was missing. And she couldn't love herself. Right? She was at this point where she could not love herself. So what she chose to do was she loved her husband, she loved her child. So she took glasses of water and she just held them and imbibed them with as much love as she could for her husband and her child. And she started to consume them and drink them to hope in hopes that something would change. Well, apparently after her first consumption, she became violently in pain and ill, like this physical illness just took over. But she knew that it was changing something. It was moving some stuck energies. It was shifting things. And she kept doing it. And that was the start of her healing journey, was imbibing water with love and consuming it. And, it didn't necessarily matter that she loved herself or not at that point. She just knew that love was the direction to go. So I just thought that was so powerful.
That is super powerful. It's super awesome. That's something I've been studying for a long time through, Chinese traditional medicine. They say even while you're cooking, for instance, try to be infusing your love in the food. That's why mom's cooking tastes better, right? Because she loves you and she's thinking
Yep.
about you while she's making dinner,
Yep.
so there's small practices, little things. It's, I think happiness is and love is a pile of little things of acknowledgement and gratitude, you know, and feeling that connection with this world, whether it's your child or, the tree, it's, and really coming first and foremost to the self, like you said, like learning to love yourself. A lot of us move to like what I call cataclysm thinking. When something doesn't fit, like they presume the worst, instead of like expecting that it might be good, and it usually is if you're just patient with the process. So moving more into that space that the mind, I think of, it's like good, bad, left, right, should I, shouldn't I, and kind of wanting control, whereas the heart is this place of like allowing and, acceptance and, caring. And so I think, that's, sort of the vibration that we want to start to, chant up and work up within ourselves and in our communities of like reassurance. We also have this competitive social structure, that has been kind of Darwinistic, when really we know that nature is more synergistic, and that if we move and start to, in ways, try to support each other, even in small things like, hey, nice shirt, or like, just a hug. Have you checked out the science of hugging?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was like eight hugs a day or something along those lines, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's powerful.
Hugs,
Mm-hmm.
it can really transform your day. If someone's having a hard day, you may not even know it, and you share with them a hug and they may break down, because they really needed it, and because they hadn't had a hug for a while and they're going through a lot,
That such simple practical things, the physical touch is huge. There's so much that's shared with physical touch, but even just being that person who smiles at the grocery store, or it makes a difference. I thought my college volleyball coach, I thought she was nuts, right? Because she was, back in the day, this was like 20 years ago, 22 years ago, she was into the she was into heart math then, right? And she was like, we all have to just she'd call a timeout and she'd be like, we all just have to focus on love, because what we have, like this bubble of love around us, and we can feel each other's bubbles of love, like we can feel each other's heart's magnetic fields, and it'll influence how we play. And I was like, lady, you're crazy. But she was right. Like, it matters. So because love is an extension of us into the world, it absolutely has the potential to change people, whether we know it or not, whether it is that actual contact of, I love your shirt, or, hey, you look like you need a hug, or just simply just having a good day. And it's okay to have a good day and walking around like you're having a good day, right? I mean, that matters. It matters. And I'm just realizing it on such a more profound level. And I absolutely love it. And I'm so grateful to have conversations with people like you and have Instagram, because a lot of this is just kind of my ramblings and my meanderings. And it's just so cool that people are connecting with it, because I really think that this is the way that we need to go.
You are on it, sister. You can see the love and energy and excitement from it in you. You're just like charged. It's beautiful. That's, this is the way we could all be like Carrie here, and, bring your excitement to the, I always say your gifts aren't what make you special. It's what you're meant to give, and that we all have something that gives us this charge, that's unique. And that I also say we're all angels, because we all have our astrological angles. And when you're in balance with your angle, then you're bringing your gifts and your love. I love permaculture. I love, the pranic lifestyle. I love, dogs and drumming and skateboarding. And so, I'm going to do that. and each person watching this right now has their unique gifts that lend to the richness of our world, that we've been kind of homogenized and compartmentalized, like you said, in our special fields of knowing and etc. And it all feels separated, you know, but really, like, just our body is the same, as above, so below. There's this connection that interrelates on all levels and just adds to the richness and the wholeness and the vitality and strength of ourselves and our communities. So I think we're actually at the dawn of a golden age. And this is another thing. I don't know if you know anything about this. This is kind of more from the esoteric astrological kind of thing, but the galactic center is like the heart of the galaxy, a supermassive black hole with tons of light pouring out of it. And we've been, in the Kali Yuga, it's this elliptical orbit going away from the center. And now we've been whipping back around. And as I understand it, we're, being hit with these streams of light that are actually pinging the Schumann resonance and changing the Schumann resonance of the planet. But of course, that ensconces us. And I think this light is waking up our DNA and waking up our greater knowing, more of our angelic selves. So I don't know if anything to share about.
No, not necessarily specifically related to that, although thank you for my new weekend research. But what I do know is that in terms of this, like, the interconnectedness and kind of using various forms of energy or electromagnetic radiation and things like that to wake us up, if we start to recognize that at the finest fabric of energy, we're just like these little tiny vibrations, and then that means that there's nothing that separates you and me, this keyboard in my son's room, that, tree across the street. We're all the same. And so that, the quantum world has all these things like spooky action at a distance and superconduction. The fact that, like, literally something here can be felt instantaneously somewhere else. And so that's why we need to start to reach this collective consciousness, because there will be a critical mass who, some of us might be impacted by the changes of the Schumann resonance. Some of us might hear this talk and go outside more or smile more. But every time we do that, we collectively change that vibration, right? We contribute to that vibration. And so we have to recognize there will be a critical threshold that we get to. And that threshold then will, I don't want to say force other people, but maybe kick some people up a notch, right? They may awaken other people to this concept, and more people. And so I think we are there, whether it's coming from cosmic energy, whether it's coming from our own thoughts or emotions. It's this vibrational changes that we're emitting individually into this collective fabric that's going to accumulate and add up and matter. We're there. That dawn is, I feel that dawn is right around the corner.
Yeah, me too. I'm so stoked. I'm stoked to hear, just this in community with you, to, feel our way into this new space, because it really is, I think of, like, along this path, one of the dawnings I've had is that your higher self is your inner child, and if you think about, when you're a kid running around on the playground, you're just like, you run up to some strange person you've never met and you're like, hey, you look fun, let's go play, and there's, not all of this, like, guardedness and stuff that's in our culture, and that's really refreshing and relieving, and fun, and that we could be moving more into a space that feels like childhood throughout our lives, where we're just excited about life, excited about the world and the people in the world, the animals and the plants. And something else you said, you were talking about meditating under the tree, that whole thing of the electromagnetic field of the tree, and how you just being there under the tree can, raise your vibration. And the more of us, in Buddhism, there's also this thing of nirvana. The seed of nirvana is samsara, or pain. There's been so much, and that's like part of the body miracle, is like when something's going on in your body, that it's telling you where and what it is that's wrong. And then you can, like, start to do something about it. Without that knowledge, then it just gets worse and goes into entropy, So on a more collective level, I see what's happening with all the trauma in the world. Is in permaculture, we say the problem is the solution, because it's pointing you at what's wrong and what needs addressing. So
yeah. Yes, so many ways, right? We're in a suppressive culture with medicine and just with stuff that makes us uncomfortable. It's like, oh, I know that's happening, but I don't really want to spend too much time or energy. It doesn't make me feel good. Or in my body, it's like, oh, I've got this pain here, I'm going to take an aspirin. But it's information about what we need to tend to, right? Where we need to put our energy, where we need to put our resources, our love, whatever it might be. And so I love what you just said about that, because that's so true. Pain is not a dysfunction. It's guidance, right? It's absolutely guidance. And so if we can start to embrace that, then we can unwind our body, we can unwind our trauma, and we can address it without holding on to it and suppressing it and ignoring it. We probably don't have time, right? But when I was a practicing massage therapist, there were so many times where I would be holding an acupuncture point or just an area of stiffness on the body. And I felt energy release. I felt trauma release. I would see visions of someone in surgery. I would feel, someone would start crying hysterically, laughing hysterically, like things were being released, right? And what happens with the body is if you don't address the trauma, the pain, the body walls itself off from that. And that just becomes an area that we have blocked quantum communication. Energy is not flowing. And then that will contribute to more tissue dysfunction. That tissue dysfunction can manifest in disease. It can manifest in further blockages. And it just continues this downstream cycle. So if we can convince ourselves that pain is information and something that I need to look into, we can really start to initiate the process of healing, both in the microcosm of our body and the macrocosm of the greater world.
And psychologically too, right? I mean, it's like we often want to push down the things that are uncomfortable about our lives, but really, if you just allow them to come through and come up, like they say, you got to feel it to heal it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's wow. This is a juicy one. I'm loving this connection, Carrie.
Oh, absolutely. I'm having a good time too, Jesse. Thank you.
Yeah. Love you too. Awesome.
You're awesome too. I unfortunately I do have kids that I'm gonna have to pick. I don't know what my timeline is. Yeah. We might have to wrap this up. Is there anything else you want to chat about, or do you, I feel like we talked about a lot of awesome things.
I could chat with you all day, but Likewise. I've noticed my Instagram, for some reason, it kills it after an hour anyway. I don't know. I keep having that, but I want to respect your time and your family and all those things. And you've shared so many juicy nuggets today, condensed, tight, fat, juicy, golden nuggets of wisdom.
Like the elevator spiel when someone says, why do you stare at the sun before you come into the building, right? It's like, here's why. Okay, boom.
I remember doing that when I was first getting into it, and it was getting to be that time of day, and I was at the grocery store, and I was like, gosh, I really want to sun gaze, and I just went for it. And people were like looking at me, and
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like we share our weirdness so that other people see it as weird, but in that way, we're sharing this information with a greater community, and hopefully we influence more people to maybe look into connecting with the light, connecting with the earth, connecting with love, connecting with each other.
It's happening. No doubt.
It's happening. So awesome, Jesse.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Wishing you all the best to you and your family. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm sure you got something from this. Be well, Earth family. Love you.
Be well. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.